So guys, today we're gonna be covering Arduinos. This is just like a very basic lesson, so we're not gonna get too deep into it. So an Arduino is pretty much a microcontroller, and then it's like a board for a microcontroller, and they pretty much put a bunch of parts to make it so that anyone can code it in C++, instead of having to code in binary and then like using your own wiring and stuff, and it gets very difficult. So this is kind of a very approachable way for any of us to be able to use a microcontroller. Alright, so the Arduino can be able to use two types of signals. It can do analog and digital signals. So analog signals pretty much can take any type of value. For instance, like a sine wave or something. And you generally use these for like a motor for a range of motions or something, and a range of strengths. Or it can be digital. An example for this is just high-low. So either your thing passes a certain threshold or it doesn't. So does anyone want to tell me like which one of these are digital and which one of these signals are analog? Alright, Jamie.
The top one is analog, the bottom is digital.
Yeah, you'd be right. Yeah, good job. So this is so this is like the Arduino IDE. This is pretty much what you're going to be using to code the Arduino. So an IDE is an integrated development environment, and you pretty much use this to code everything and make your Arduino do work. And these create the .ino files. So when you see .ino, it just means this is like the code I'm going to use in my Arduino. And make sure when you guys code, you guys put semicolons after every line or except the include statements. Don't worry about that. So you'll notice like when you guys are coding CPP for your Arduino, when you open it up, you're gonna get like this at the start, like it's like nothing. So this is kind of what it comes with the Arduino, and these are kind of the key two key functions, I guess, for the Arduino. The first one is void setup. So this kind of runs at the very start of the program, and it only runs once, and you kind of initialize some arguments in. So for instance, if you want like a few lights to be starting to be turned on, and then like reach some threshold and lights start to move off or something, then it's set up to kind of like start at on. And loop is used to repeatedly run tasks. For example, like blinking the light on and off. I think loop updates every millisecond. I could be wrong, but this will run every millisecond until the end. And so and this is probably not as useful, but I'll teach you guys some basic stuff about coding in CPP that you guys will probably use when you're doing Arduino stuff. So the first thing is like variables. You guys have all taken alphabet, like X can be any number. It's the same thing for coding, but you can like store whatever you want as long as you declare it as that type. So variables have to be declared a certain type. For example, you can declare something as an integer, and in that case, it's just one of these, and it can't include any decimals. So it would be like numbers like 1, 2, 3, or 4, or like 15, something like that. Fine. And another thing you could use is a double, and you probably use a double when you have to get a little more accurate. So for example, for Bradley's lie detector, it needs to like calculate averages and stuff, and that would require a bit more precision. So probably use that. And there are a few other ones, but realistically, you guys probably won't use them. And if you want, you can also define constants at the start of your code before like can you go to the last slide? So like before all of this, you can go like #define, and then you can put like a variable, you can put a number, this line, and then with that, it will stay constant, and it will never change. That's all. And so the other thing that's very important when you're coding are if-else statements and loops. I'll start with if-else statements. These are called conditional statements. And it's pretty much if the condition is fulfilled, then you'll execute like a line of code or a chunk of code. So for example, if I don't do the dishes, my mom will be upset at me. That is like a very real example. example, but you could do something like if x is equal to 3, then I will run some library. And then the other two types of loops are for loops and while loops. For loops, you have to initialize a variable, have a condition, and then increment a variable by a certain time every iteration. And this is generally used when you only, like you know exactly when your code is going to end. So you'll probably use a for loop when you want to run, like, let's say something just 10 times. And then you can set, like, for I equals 0, while it's less than 10, every iteration you'll add I by 1, increment it by 1. And this will run 10 times. And a while loop will run as long as a condition is true. For instance, actually, pretty much, yeah, like this will go on forever until something's met. And this will probably be used for something like one of your ball tracking robots, like while the ball's being tracked and move towards it, like a certain point, right? Yeah. And can anyone tell me how you can maybe make a while loop run forever? Yeah, so if you never change the condition and you enter the while loop, then this thing will run forever. You can also just say while true, and it'll run forever until you, I don't know, have like a break state. Alright. And this is probably the most important part for the Arduino's libraries. I know some of us have had a bit of difficulty installing them, but these are pretty much pre-written functions that are available for use in your program. And because not all of us want to write every bit of code, and honestly, you can't really be expected to write everything, a lot of people have like put stuff online for us to take and use and adapt for our uses. And yeah, so pretty much all you need to do to include a library in your program is use hashtag include and then put the library pin at the very top of the code. And if you bring your own, then the formatting is pretty different, but you'll very likely not write your own libraries. And the key thing to do is remember to install your libraries ahead of time, or especially when they're outside. So Arduino does provide a bunch of libraries, but a lot of your projects will probably take libraries from like some Git update or something. And you just need to make sure you like bring it into where you're using stuff. Yeah. So this thing is a serial monitor. You can get it by pressing this thing over here. This will help you debug your code. So you can see a bunch of hello worlds, probably because it's just printing hello world over and over again. And it allows you to send and receive data to and from the Arduino. You can usually check this to check like your voltages or like to check like if something is receiving signal or something. But pretty much you just use this to debug. I'm going to show you guys how to do this in the demonstration. And the very last thing is breadboarding. This is not super related to Arduinos exactly, but I think it's still very important. So have any of you guys used a breadboard? If you guys have used a breadboard, raise your hand. All right. Yeah. Yeah. So breadboards are very important for prototyping, mainly because they don't require any use of soldering. So most of the changes you make aren't permanent, and you can just like keep changing and interchanging components whenever you want. And so they have kind of three components. They have like terminal strips, which are like these, the power rails, which are these things, and there's like a ravine in the middle for like the IC chips, because they go like one on each side. And you'll notice how like there's like a bar, so all the A, B, C, D, E, like everything there is interconnected. And what that means is like if you put something in A, and you put power into A, B, C, D, and E will all have power. And this is really useful because if you put a wire in here, then you want to get power in here. And you just need to remember this because you know when you're prototyping, you want to actually get power where you want it to be. And the other key thing to remember is you want to put power in the plus and your ground in the minus sign. And I think that should be it. And I'll do like a quick Arduino demonstration and you should be good to go. Alright, so the first thing is the Arduino, this IDE. I'll show you guys stuff with like the serial monitor. thing we can do is we can do like the serial print statement. So the first thing before you do any like serial print thing is you have to do serial begin. And you'll see I put like a random number in here. That just matches this, and that's just the amount of like information sent every second. I think it's just 9,600 bits, but I could be wrong on that. And yeah, and then this statement is pretty much what you'll use. You can just like Google this later if you don't remember, or ask one of us. But pretty much, if you put this statement and put quotes, then you can be able to put like any like statement you want inside of your thing. So if I say like hello world or something, and I compile my code and then run it, and then I check my serial monitor, I should have hello world printed, which does happen. And you'll notice if I put something in loop, it will like print over and over again. So if I want to like print like LOR or something, then it should probably print over and over again. Yeah. Alright. So that's one thing. And the other thing is when you plug your Arduino in, and actually, yeah, when you plug your Arduino in, there's like a few steps. The first one is to go into Sketch, and then Arduinos, and then like you select your actual board. And since I'm using an Arduino Uno, I selected the Arduino Uno board, and then yeah, that's about it. So that way you know you're coding for like the board you're actually using. Yeah, and so this is just like a function I stole off of like the Arduino example site. And it pretty much allows this one LED at the bottom here to flash. And as you know, notice it's just a simple like, it's just a simple loop right here. It just says turn the LED on, delay for a second, and then turn it on, and then wait for a second. And you notice that there's an 1,000 here. This is because it's 1,000 milliseconds. So everything here in time terms is in milliseconds. So when I compile it, and then I run it, you'll see the thing at the bottom will like light up for a second and turn off for a second. And then if I change it to like 3,000, then it should delay for 3 seconds, and it should turn on for 3 seconds, which happens right here. And yeah, that's pretty much like a good intro to Arduinos. Obviously, you guys are going to have to learn a lot more about them, but I think this is a pretty good starting point. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask any of us after. We should all be able to help.